The girl woke up to find her limbs bound. What terrified her even more was the sight of corpses scattered everywhere in the room, all of them women. Just as Mary was at a loss, the girl opposite her suddenly woke up, which startled her. Because their mouths were tightly sealed with cloth strips, the two could not communicate normally. Perhaps because the screams they had just heard were too loud, heavy footsteps came from outside. Immediately afterwards, a pair of leather boots stepped into the house. Upon hearing this, Mary suddenly had a bright idea and turned her head to the other side, pretending to be a corpse. It has to be said that her method was indeed effective and successfully fooled the killer. However, the girl behind her was in a terrible situation. She was forcibly dragged out of the room. Before Mary could react, the girl's cries rang out from outside. As the sound gradually faded, it was clear that the other party was in grave danger. At this moment, a hand was placed on her shoulder. Mary thought it was the killer. Turning her head, she saw another survivor. She looked stunning and gestured to Mary not to make a sound, because any noise would alert the killer outside. At that moment, footsteps sounded again. The girl quickly crawled under the bed and made a gesture of twisting her body. Mary understood and closed her eyes to continue pretending to be a corpse. She watched from the floor. The girl had been dragged back, but she was covered in blood and already cold. After the killer left, the girl let go of Mary's arm and told her to try not to ask questions, because she didn't know what had happened either. They had only taken a nap and ended up here. Now, all they needed to do was get out of this dangerous place as soon as possible. The two of them helped each other to their feet and walked to the door. They hurriedly turned the handle, but the door not only wouldn't open, but it also attracted the attention of the killer. Seeing this, the two of them quickly hid in the attic and closed the door, trying to slip away unnoticed. However, the killer wasn't stupid and discovered their presence in a matter of minutes. He grabbed them by the hair and pulled them out one by one. Fortunately, Mary's acting skills were outstanding, and she fooled the killer again. The girl in red, on the other hand, unfortunately lost her life. After the footsteps faded away, Mary quietly went to the peephole to check. She immediately concluded that the door was impassable and she had to try to find another exit. She opened the room next to the wooden door, and a corpse immediately fell out. Realizing that this way was blocked, Mary could only move her feet and try to escape through the room's window. But the killer seemed to have thought of this and sealed it with wooden strips, making it watertight. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't break it. Then he went into the bathroom. Or rather, it was more like a slaughterhouse because the walls were covered with tomato juice. Mary couldn't care less about her inner turmoil. She walked towards the window, but as expected, it was still locked tight. Then she heard a sound coming from the room. She looked carefully through the crack in the door and saw that the killer hadn't entered the room. She then went out to find the source of the sound and finally found a girl barely breathing among a pile of corpses. Having learned from her previous experience, the girl decided to cut off the killer's path first. So she forcefully pushed the cabinet to block the door of the room. This way, even if the other party heard the sound, they wouldn't be able to break in for a while. Then Mary leaned close to the girl's ear and signaled her to be quiet. The girl listened and quieted down a lot, letting Mary untie the ropes for her. However, the girl's legs seemed to be seriously injured, and she still made noise when she moved, which alerted the killer outside. Fortunately, the door was blocked by a cabinet, which could buy them some time. Mary looked around and then pinned her hopes on the ventilation duct. She placed the bedside table underneath and reached out to pull off the cover of the vent. After persistent effort, she finally removed it before the killer entered. Next, she helped the girl up and planned to escape through the ventilation duct. She first stuck her head up to check and then urged the girl to come up quickly. However, the girl was clearly terrified by the scene and stood motionless. Helpless, Mary had to crawl into the ventilation duct to rescue the girl's life while ensuring her own safety. After calming down, the girl moved her body towards the ventilation duct, but her knee was obviously badly injured and she couldn't reach Mary's hand at all. Seeing the killer about to break down the door, Mary had no choice but to abandon her rescue attempt. While searching for an exit in the passageway, she saw through a small window that the girl was sitting blankly inside. The door had been broken open, but the killer was nowhere to be seen. Perhaps he had gone out on business. Thinking this, Mary hurriedly returned to rescue the girl inside. Unexpectedly, the girl had only come up halfway when the killer grabbed her head and dragged her back into the room. Mary, who was upstairs, could hear clearly that the girl had initially cried for help, but soon stopped breathing. Next, she wanted to hear the killer's movements, but instead, a steel fork stabbed her.